So good morning and welcome to the next edition of the Pimento Business Development Club. The BD Club was set up 4 years ago, and it's really to help agencies get to grips with all aspects of new business, to help agencies around new business marketing and their growth. And we bring in experts to really help discuss and share best practice. So if you don't know me, I'm actually Paddy Woods. I'm the founder of Pimento Fuse, and Pimento Fuse is a new business consultancy which is designed to solve your challenges and fuel growth for independent agencies by bringing in different experts from across the Pimento network. If you haven't been on previous calls, please use the chat box to ask questions and really get into asking, getting what you want out of this as well. So today's session is slightly different. We're going to have we're exploring the Good Pitch poll, which Marcus Brown runs at the Great Pitch Company, and it's looking at the stresses and pressures of pitching for independent agencies, and it's really based on a survey they conduct every year. But it is an eye opener because it really shows the impact new business is having in this current environment. So I have got the fabulous Marcus Brown joining me today. He is the CEO and founder of the Great Pitch Company. He's
Hello, Paddy. Lovely to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you here. And today, Marcus is actually going to be taking us through a presentation with the findings of the Good Pitch Company. And there's some recommendations at the back that we'll talk through as well. But it's really open to asking you to ask the questions so that we can really have a two-way discussion at the end of this sort of presentation process. So, Marcus, it is great to have you here, and thank you for joining us. I'm going to pass you the reins now and let you take us through the survey, and then I'll come back in and we'll ask questions as we go.
Brilliant. Thanks, Paddy. So let me just bring that presentation up. Hopefully you can see that on my screen now.
Yep.
Yep. The Great Pitch Company, and it's the Great Pitch Poll. So a little introduction about me. So I've had a career working across WPP and Publicis Group, including 9 years as the CEO of Young and Rubicon Group in Geneva. And then I worked for 4 years at Publicis Group as their global growth officer across their media brands, Starcom, Zenith, and the like. And then in 2019, I let out my inner entrepreneur and set up the Great Pitch Company, which I've been thoroughly enjoying ever since. Today, I'm representing our small but very diverse team who are located in London, Geneva, and Milan, and we work globally along with a broader set of consultants, trusted consultants that work with us. So today we're going to do three things. First is I'll take you through the findings of the Great Pitch Poll. We'll then share with you some recommendations that we have as a company to fuel debate within the industry and this call, and then hopefully open it up for discussion, answer any questions you might have in discussion at the end. Before we do that, just a very quick introduction to the Great Pitch Company. Essentially, what we do is we help drive up win rates and drive down wasted resources. We do that through two means. We have Great Now is one service that we offer, which is where we help agencies that are on with live opportunities, converting them into wins. So that might be a pitch or repitches. And we do that through pitch consultancy and performance coaching. The other area of our business we call Great Forever, and this is where we align culture, people, and process so that you're ever more efficient and effective in the business development sphere. And we do that through training and through consultancy. So those are essentially the two areas that we do it for. We do it for independent agencies, the independent agency networks, global holding companies and their networks, and everybody in between. So it gives us a really great insight into the world of business development at all different levels. And as a result of that, people often go, well, okay, you're called the Great Pitch Company. What makes an agency truly great at business development? Well, I think, the truth of it is business development isn't rocket science, but we've codified it into what we call the Great Wheel of Fortune. And of course, business development is predicated on being good at three things: existing business, marketing, and new business. And those three are all interdependent. Let me go into a bit more detail. So first of all, we talk about being good at managing and retaining your existing business. Obviously, no one wants to join an agency that's losing clients. So, number one priority, retaining business, and then growing and extending that across scope, maybe different geographies, different capabilities, and where relevant, extending it to sister companies. The second area we look at is marketing and how good is your proposition as an agency? How compelling, differentiating, and motivating is it? And then how well do you bring that to life across paid, owned, and earned channels? And then the third area is the specific discipline of new business and how good you are in terms of your business development culture, your prospecting, qualifying, saying no to the wrong types of pitches, converting, and negotiating. And the survey that we're going to go through today picks up on many elements of this great wheel of fortune. And by the way, we've done the homework and we've looked and codified all of the different factors that make up those the biggest differences to those levers. And we use this as a strategic backbone to any of the work that we approach. And again, we've used it for the survey, today in terms of our work. So without more of a to-do, let's get on and talk the findings of the survey. And just to give you a bit of background, the survey all started from as a result of an article I wrote for Campaign back in 2019, which was, I was at the time working for a big holding company, and I saw the issues of how business development can cause mental health issues, mental well-being issues. And so I wrote an article to galvanize the industry into doing something about it. And since then, at the Great Pitch Company, we've been championing better pitch practices since then. And I'll tell you more about that in a moment. So the survey this year was done between December and January. It's an online survey. It has a statistically relevant sample size. And we had people from all types of agency, media, advertising, integrated, digital. 49% of the respondents either had a job title that was marketing or new business or something similar. And just a note that because this is now our fourth year of doing it, the sample sizes, as I say, are statistically relevant. It allows us to compare back over the years to see how changes have made a difference. We start off by asking people the challenges that they face with regard to business development in 2024. And general heavy workload returned as the number one new business challenge, down from its peak in 2021 of 60%. The second biggest challenge was increased competition from agencies similar to ours. That was at an all-time high of 40%. And then the next biggest was increasingly complex pitch briefs. I'm sure many of you will testify to that. That was cited as the third biggest factor by 36% of respondents, up 14% versus the previous year. The top three issues this year saw some big changes compared to the previous years. So for the first time, lack of resource, when we say staff, to work on pitches, this actually was down from 51% to 34%, a drop of 17%. So that wasn't such a big issue. There was more staff available to work on pitches, or there were less pitches. What we'll see in a moment is that people were saying there were less pitches. There was that factor. The problems that were of working remotely and pitching virtually, well, they fell by 8 and 11% respectively, declines of around 40% since the first survey in 2021, perhaps not surprisingly, given that was when COVID started. The issue that grew most in importance in this year's survey was reduced pitching activity in the marketplace, which grew by 19%. and recorded by almost a third of all respondents at 31%. So those were the biggest challenges that agencies faced in 2024. The next thing we look at is mental health and well-being. What is your agency doing about it? And we ask two questions. We ask questions around intentions and we ask questions around actions. In terms of intentions, when we said to what degree does your organization regularly communicates on the issue of well-being, well, that was selected by 57% of respondents. That was down versus the COVID peak of 2021, where there was 86% of people took that vote. So intentions, it's less of a hot topic, perhaps not surprisingly versus COVID, but still is securing quite a significant amount of a share of voice within the agency world. We then ask, in terms of actions, to what degree has their organisation implemented plans that support mental well-being? Well, worryingly, 10% said they had done very little. 52% said they had made a start. Okay, perhaps a bit disappointing. But good news, 38% said their organisation had made great strides. We then go a little deeper and ask them, so how is your business supporting your mental well-being in 2024? And internal communications remained the top way agencies supported at 70%. That's largely on a par with previous years. But interestingly, this year, dedicated days off became the second most important action, with 58% of respondents identifying this. And that's significantly up 31% since the first survey in 2021. So people working on pitches are getting days off in lieu, which is obviously a good start. Employee engagement initiatives, and we give them examples like reduced gym membership, was cited by 56% of people, and that was up for a third year in a row, followed by training or classes at 46%. Interestingly, many of the other measures, counselling, training, or classes, or screening, or surveys, they were all down 20% each versus 2021. So, generally speaking, mental health and well-being is less of a priority, but arguably is still year on year gathering momentum in terms of actions. In the survey, we then asked people about training and in particular, in which areas does your company need new business related training? And the highest one selected was presentation or performance training. That was scored at 57%. That's up 13% compared to last year. That was followed by prospecting training, selected by 45% of respondents. And then 44% were asking for strategy or storytelling training. That was up 18% versus last year. And that was closely followed by how to win more or conversion. If you think back to the great Wheel of Fortune, conversion at 43%. When we asked, do you think your company needs to dedicate more budget towards new business training? The vast majority of people said yes. As you can see, 65%. Some said no, some didn't know. So, as always, not surprisingly, perhaps people want there to be a bigger training budget for new business. We then talk about the Pitch Positive Pledge, which I'm sure many of you know about. It was launched in 2022 by two of the big trade associations, ISBA representing advertisers, and IPA representing ad agencies, and they introduced the Pitch Positive Pledge. Partly, I'm very proud in response to our championing of the cause and the great pitch poll to improve pitching. And since then, the pledge, I think at the last time I checked, had been signed by over 336 companies, 32 of the biggest advertisers, 253 agencies, and 51 other partners. We asked partners in the survey, to what degree have you heard of the Pitch Positive Pledge? And then we asked, and 34% said they'd never heard of it, which is a bit worrying in the first place. The second group was 18% that had heard something but not sure where or when. And then those that were aware fell into one of three buckets. They were either aware but not sure if our agency has signed, or fully aware and our agency has signed, or fully aware but our agency has not signed, which was at 9%. So obviously a lot of work to be done here. The more worrying element, which is of those that had heard of it, the Pitch Positive Pledge, what score would you give it out of 10? And the score was 3 out of 10. Obviously, disappointing that that score isn't higher. Shows there's a lot more still to be done. And I know from talking to the IPA, they're working on Pitch Positive Pledge 2.0, and we should be hearing more from them in the not too distant future. This year, we asked some new questions about changing working practices, and we asked people if your employer insisted on you working from the office more than your current requirement, might it cause you to look for a new job? And 42% said they would consider looking for a new job. Obviously a high number, and a significant number of respondents, 14%, were unsure. So, and by the way, we did survey to understand what their current protocols were, and then ask this question, so we can see who, if we go deeper in the data, who particularly is affected by this. But the headline figure is 42% of people, almost half, said they'd look for a new job if they had to work more from the office than the current requirement. We then went in with two new questions this year, really to understand the impact of business development and working in new business or on pitches. And we firstly asked, has the stress of working in new business or on pitches ever made you think of changing job? And the staggering 42% of people said they had, something that it should be keeping all of us, certainly talent officers, people who work in the industry. That's a very alarming figure, that's of 42%. We then go on and ask, okay, so has working in new business or on pitches ever made you think of changing industry? And this was also very alarming, because 33% of people had said that they had thought of changing jobs because of the stresses and strains of working on new business or on pitches. Next area we looked at was pitch fees, and we asked respondents, do you think if charging a client pitch fees, if they were commonplace, would it have a positive impact on pitching culture in the UK? Not surprisingly, 84% said yes, with just 6% saying no. We'll come back and talk about that a little bit at the end once we've gone through the findings of the poll. Um, we then asked respondents about, okay, so approximately what proportion of pitches did you receive a pitch fee of some sort? And less than 5% said they had received any remuneration at all. We then turned our attention to intellectual property or IP, and we asked people, are you aware of whether your agency ever hands over intellectual property rights in exchange for a nominal fee? And the biggest one was people didn't know. They perhaps weren't involved in that degree of negotiation. Um, 39% said no. I think it's 30. No, the majority didn't. Hang on. The majority, sorry, 44% said no, but alarmingly, 14% said yes. And that to me is really concerning that anybody is giving away IP rights in exchange for a nominal pitch fee. I'd really recommend that you don't if you are one of those agencies that are doing that. We then asked people, do you hand over intellectual property rights if you're paid a fee that's more like full market value of £100,000 upwards? The vast majority said, I don't know. And then second was no, I'm pleased to say. But there were still some saying yes. Around 13% saying yes, we would exchange IP in exchange for a chunky fee. I think that's an area that's more acceptable, certainly not for just a nominal fee. But it's not all bad news. We did ask people what did they enjoy working on pitches and new business. And there were many that people ticked. They could tick all that applied. So immersion into a different category to the one they normally work on was selected by over 80%. Working with different people across the agency, the thrill of chasing new clients, again, all scored highly. The one that didn't score very highly was the privilege of being selected to work on a pitch. Perhaps that in itself is illuminating and talk back to that importance of business development culture. And then finally, two other areas that they did like, getting to work with the best and most senior people within the agency and people seeing as an opportunity to learn certainly is one of the benefits, I'm sure many of you would agree, of working on a pitch. One final question, a little bit as a piece of fun, was do you think AA might replace your job in the future? Probably a very honest 14% said don't know. 76% said no. Some said yes. And of course, who knows where the truth will lie in the future as the world expands and AI becomes more ingrained in all of our work and all of our jobs. So that was a quick canter through the findings of the Great Pitch Poll. So I think we'll hold questions for the end. Why don't I now just take you through our resulting recommendations that came out of this survey and from our work working with independent agencies such as yourselves. And we wrote this up into an opinion piece that we put into campaign. We called it a plan for pitching, creating a fairer, healthier, and more effective process. And let's go through these now, and it'd be great to, in a moment, get your points of view on this as well. The first recommendation to fuel this debate was that we need to accurately understand the cost of the pitch for both advertisers and agencies. And probably many of you will know there's been surveys done in countries around the world. The US did a survey that put the cost of pitching at on average for a pitch at $250,000 for a pitch. That's people's time that would have been charged to could have been charged on existing client business. So a true opportunity cost of working on a pitch. So that was at 250,000. Other studies have been done around Europe, pricing it cheaper, to be honest, but from 50,000 euros in Italy to 100,000 euro in other European markets. So roughly speaking, it's £100,000. Say it's big money. Every time you do a pitch, you're writing a check for that amount of money. What was really interesting in the US research was that they also looked at the cost of pitches to advertisers, and the cost there was similar. And that's a really strong argument to give to clients as to why they shouldn't do pitches so frequently. If we had those figures at our fingertips, it would give us all the opportunity to dissuade clients from doing pitches so regularly. That's the first thing that we put forward. The second thing, which I've already said in the debrief from the pitch poll, is that anybody who is giving away intellectual property rights for free or for a nominal pitch fee needs to be stamped out urgently. If a client comes to you, they say, participating in this pitch, you have to give away your IP rights as a result of it. Question it, say that we don't do that. If they don't agree, don't take part in the pitch, would be my strong advice. So that's point number two. Point number three, controversial, some would say, but we think pitch fees need to become the norm as they are in some big European markets, like Germany. Very similar market in many ways to the UK, and there pitch fees are commonplace. Now, I don't think a client should have to pay for all of the costs of pitching. We have to invest as a business. That's fair enough. Every business does. But the pitch fee should be used to stamp out bad practices that happen among clients, like ghosting, or it would help reduce them putting too many agencies into a pitch. So, having five, they all have to pay 5,000, that's going to start dissuading them. So a pitch fee, even if it's quite small, I think would start to improve behaviors within the marketplace. Number four, we need to continue the momentum created by the pitch positive pledge. The IPA, I'm sure with us, would say it's disappointing that it's not getting the impact that it's designed to do. We've got to keep nurturing that. If you haven't looked at it recently, go back, look at the IPA pitch positive pledge and remind yourselves of it in terms of best practices. We also think that the pitch pledge should be distilled down into a one-page pitch agreement that overly states what agencies and clients will do and what they won't do. So I recommend agencies all the time. If you're about to make an investment in a pitch of whatever figure you want to make it, £25,000, £50,000, £100,000, it's absolutely okay for you to say, I'm willing to invest that amount, but dear client, I do need you to tell me about the process up front, so it's clearly outlined, including the timings and your stakeholders. I'd like you to share with me the number of participating agencies. So, if you're starting with 10 agencies, that allows me to go, look, I can't invest that amount. It's just not worth me doing it. If you say 3, then I go, it's a good idea. And I'd like you to share the names of the agencies at the pitch stages so I understand who my competition is. Otherwise, you're tying my hands behind my back. And yes, please, can we codify the available budget up front? You don't have to tell me the precise amount, but a band figure. Is it between X and Y? I've seen clients of ours, agencies pitch, where they thought The budget might have been 200,000 and the client turns up it's 50,000 or 25,000. We've got to be having discussions that helps get those parameters at least up front. And then we would like you to pay a pitch fee, even if just nominal, to help us reduce bad behavior in the marketplace. Now, you may not get clients agreeing to all of it, but if you were to start and have that positive desire up front, it may set the tone of the pitches you're on in a much more favorable way. One to discuss, I'm sure. Number six, we thought that audits should be conducted on pitches to see to what degree both parties have adhered to the pitch positive pledge. That would help us see which companies, which agencies are doing well. There could be a certification program. Number seven, we suggest inverting the process. So we have a client in Brazil who has championed this, and they've done it really well. Is they've said, look, rather than us go through the pitch and then have a money discussion, we'd like to have a money discussion up front. Okay. So we can understand if we're not going to be able to find middle ground on pricing up front, let's know about it now rather than invest however much in the pitch. So this is a little bit like getting to those budget parameters up front, at least. I think it's a really smart way. Some clients will agree to it, some won't. If you don't ask, you don't get. Number eight, the power of no. A lot of this is in the hands of agencies who can qualify more carefully. Saying no to the wrong types of pitches. For many years I worked in creative agencies, and creative agencies are often the worst at anything that comes past the door. They'll pitch for because the reality of getting that great wheel of fortune in balance, as I was talking about at the beginning, that combination of existing marketing and new business, that is easily thrown out of balance if you pitch too much. So we recommend people pitch less to win more. So again, recommend that agencies qualify more carefully. And then finally, number nine, we think agencies should prepare people better for the emotional roller coaster of pitching. Actually, forewarned is forearmed. It actually helps people in terms of mental health, first aid, awareness. And that's why at the Great Pitch Company, we've started a training program to help agencies to prepare their people for the emotional roller coaster of pitching. And by the way, in Australia, they've just changed the law to put the onus of responsibility on companies now. So at the moment, it's not a legal requirement for you to do this in the UK. In Australia, they've changed the law. If there's an area of business activity that can lead to mental health impact, it's the responsibility of the business to address it in advance. And that's why we are convinced this is going to come to the UK in the not too distant future. So there we go. Remarkably, we managed to keep on time. There are our recommendations that we shared in campaign. And now we'd love to hear from you. Any observations, any thoughts that you would like to share? And tell us perhaps how it is at your agency. Could be good things that you're doing and you're very proud of that everybody would like to learn from too. Paddy.
Brilliant. Thank you. I am not on mute. Great. So there has been a couple of questions. Max, I wonder if there's anything else you wanted to discuss around sort of the pitch fees and the EU side of things that sort of Marcus alluded to. Max, do you want to join the conversation? Just one of the things I wanted to bring in and actually wanted to just ask as well, which is because there are so many agencies in the UK, it's quite challenging for agencies to try and demand a pitch fee when there are so many clients saying, well, actually, there's other agencies that I can go to off a similar vein. You talked about it at the very beginning, where there's increased competition and increased agencies going into your run lane. Um, Marcus, Max, is there anything else, Max, you want to bring into this? But Marcus, is there anything that we can do to try and help agencies in the UK get this pitch fee?
Yeah, so I don't know if Max wants to go first, or shall I?
Yeah, no, I was just wondering kind of whether, it's common. In my experience, I've not been offered that many pitch fees and wondered if it was kind of more commonplace in certain areas of the marketing services or in other markets, geographic markets.
It's definitely not in the UK. It's not commonplace, is the truth of it. A very small proportion of pitches, I would say, have any fee at all associated with them. Um, the we work with an agency in Italy, which is a tiny Italy, and the Italian market is more of a Wild West than the UK is. But this particular agency leader has built up a very convincing set of arguments to have with a client as to why they should invest a small amount, even if it is a small amount, because it changes the mindset of the client and the commitment of the client. And that once you get that commitment, it changes the agency's commitment too. So, I think we have to be really clear. We're not asking clients to pay the full price. We're not asking them to do that. We're asking them to show their commitment in a token amount, to help ensure that for the investment we're going to make, which is significant, that they're going to treat us fairly and properly. You can give the money back if you win the business or however you want to do it. But I think there is the opportunity to start for us all to build up that reason, that argument, and start to have those discussions with clients, given the significant investment that agencies are making in the pitch, which agencies are happy to do, but as long as they're treated fairly and paying small nominal fee helps ensure that commitment.
I agree, and I think actually one of the things that it would probably deliver better practice as well,
I
um,
think it would, yeah.
because it would mean that they're not going to invite 10 agencies or 15 agencies to a pitch process, which often you try and find out. And when you're qualifying the pitch criteria, it's like actually how many agencies are in there, what's the budget, all the things that you sort of recommended, and it's clients are very reticent about sharing some of that, and it becomes really challenging from an agency to make sure, should I be going forward with this, should I not be going, how do I really make sure
Yeah.
it's going to be a relationship that is going to work for us as well as them. um
Yes.
I've lost the chat, unfortunately, so I think David, David, let me just check, because there was one from David Price. Let's see. David Price, hello. Are you here? Can I bring you
I'm
into
here.
can I bring you into the call? Because I know you talked to
Yes.
me a question specifically, but it was around actually, is there data to talk about a number of incumbent or agencies that decline pitches? And I'm just wondering, Marcus, if you have anything, or David, do you want to sort of ask a question then?
Yeah. Yeah. No problem, Paddy. Obviously, there's been some discussion about qualifying criteria for, pitching itself, but I'm interested to know if there's any hard data which shows, percentage of agencies or businesses who decline to pitch, either for incumbent business or new prospects, and the reasons why they've made those decisions, because obviously, that's difficult decision to make.
So the only anonymized data that I know of and feel that I can share was when I worked at one of the big holding companies. This is quite a few years ago now, so I don't think I'm sharing anything that's secret. The We had access to all of the figures for two equally sized networks, and they were media networks. And one of those media networks had a reputation for pitching for everything. Their whole culture had been, if there's an opportunity, let's go for it. And that was true in every local office, regional pitches and global pitches. Their culture was one of pitching. A very similar sized network had the completely different culture, which was they were much more selective about what they pitched for. They almost had to be convinced to pitch before they would do it. And interestingly, one did, the numbers, the absolute numbers of pitches they did, one did was significant, the other one was much smaller. But the value in terms of wins was much bigger for the network that pitched less. Okay, so that's where I use that phrase, those that pitch less win more. And I think it applies to independent agencies, certainly with the clients we've worked with, which is rather than drive yourself ragged pitching for everything, if you pitch for fewer, where you have qualified and identified that you've got the right available talent, you've got the experience, you've got something that makes you may know someone at the client, that focusing on those fewer ones, better qualified, is going to have a bigger return in investment. And also stops distracting your staff, your team, from their existing business. So, which it all goes back to that balanced wheel, not having a wonky wheel of fortune we talk about, which is so easy to do. I don't know if that quite answers your question, David.
Yeah. I know where you're coming from, Marcus, and that a lot of what you said does resonate. So, it is especially in the current climate, it's a really difficult decision to stick to the criteria that you've set, yourself, your team, for MBD pitches.
Yes.
But in the long term, I do believe, and we've had instances where exactly what you've said about the value, the high value, right? Not just in terms of income, but actually, the ability to actually work on great new businesses and clients is far outweighed and made that decision worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. It's qualifying is probably the hardest part. We're doing it with a client at the moment, and we took a decision yesterday, and then all of a sudden a new pitch comes in today, which throws up the decision we made yesterday. Do we still think that's the right decision?
Exactly.
So, absolutely.
Thank
you for the question, David.
Yeah, it is incredibly challenging as well. And actually, one of the things clients prefer respect you if you say no.
Yeah.
And that's something to talk about as well. Thank you, David.
Sure.
Yes.
Nick Band, hello. Avoiding pitching altogether. Where are you, Nick? Hi, Nick.
I'm here. Hi.
Hi.
Yes.
Hello, Nick.
Hi. The best pitches I do are the ones where I don't have to pitch at all. This obviously requires a lot of pre-pitch work and building relationships, etc. with for that, and convincing them they don't need to put it out to pitch because we're the right people for the role. Have you got any advice on that and how to make that? Because it's a bit hit and miss the way I do it, but is there a formula? Is it a good thing to do? What are your views?
So yeah, absolutely. So if you can avoid pitching, then that is a much happier place to be. It sounds like what you're doing is prospecting, essentially. So you're going out to people, building relationships with them that are value adding, getting to understand their business, and then you're in a position to solve a problem they have rather than you trying to just simply sell your agency and your wares. So I think
absolutely true, absolutely correct.
To me, sorry, go on.
Yeah, we go to them with a proposal even before they've asked for it, if you know what I mean.
Yes, and especially, as I say, if you can try and do it in a way that's solving problems, not avert selling, that tends to be more effective. Because the ideal way or mindset is to never pitch to strangers. So, of course, you will always end up pitching to some companies where you have no relationship at all. But actually, you want to avoid those pitches as best you possibly can. You want to be pitching to companies where you at least know somebody, so that you've got some internal, back channel communication. But so it sounds like you're doing a good thing,
And
Nick. No,
if you don't know them, get to know them in that whole build up.
absolutely.
There
Ask
is,
them lots of questions.
yeah,
Go
and
Yeah,
and,
there's,
go
ask
and
for
see them.
extra meetings. Don't just answer the brief. Ask for tissue meetings. Ask to see them. Ask them for points of view. Keep them updated on what you're doing. Absolutely.
there's also win without pitching, a Blair Ends methodology, which also talks about sort of this. And actually, we've got a round table. Unfortunately, it's all fully booked on Friday. Um, but it talks about the client needs to know you before you pitch.
Hmm.
And that's all about your marketing coming into play. But there is other ways to break the pitch process. So I was working with an agency recently, and we had an RFP. There was 5 agencies involved. Actually, we went in and said, we're not the right agency for you, and this is the reason why. You're never going to hit your targets you've set. Your website sucks and everything like this. And they changed around and said, okay, can you help us get a project for 6 months to fix it, and we'll delay the pitch for 6 months. So actually, we picked up 50 grand's worth of work just by giving them the truth, because they said, all the agencies said, oh yes, we can do this across the world and etc. and achieve these targets. And we came in completely different mindset and said, you can't do this, it's impossible.
Yes. To that point is again, it's worth trying by saying, "Oh, unfortunately, we can't pitch on that day because we've got something else. Could we, we will really want to do this, but can we do it on the following Wednesday?" And if they say yes, you get a clear indication that they really want you as an agency to pitch. If they say no, then that you're just one of a number that's in there, so that there's 3, 4 pitching agencies. So it's a way of wheeling out whether you're really truly that they want you or not. Again, can help make a decision in the qualification. Thank you,
Yeah.
Nick. Anybody else with
Yeah.
a question, Patrick?
There's quite a few. So I'm just thinking around. John, that educating clients around fair pitching, that is part of the pitch pledge process, and it's around communication. The problem is it's only the biggest agencies. I think that's the challenge the IPA face. It's the biggest clients that sign up to these things and try
Yeah.
and good process, but they're usually using intermediaries to help them with that process. It's the smaller, medium-sized businesses which try and bring everyone under the sun and don't give you fair briefs. And that's the hardest ones to do. Um,
I guess the thing there is don't just simply accept it. So have a polite and nice conversation about the realities, and see how that conversation goes. If they're not interested, well, then it tells you quite a lot. If they're interested and they enter into at least the discussion, you may consider to keep going. But definitely within your qualification stage, ask the questions.
yeah, and I think it does come down to the qualification stage and really supporting and driving the questions that you want to make sure you're the right fit.
Yeah.
There is one, so again, it's Max, but I'm just going to ask it to you, Marcus, as the average agency investment, as you said, is significant. Have you measured this as a percentage of the value of the client or project they're pitching for? Perhaps a year one value or expected lifetime value of the agency client relationship. And I remember, I think the question here is around actually how long is it before you get your return back?
Yeah.
I remember
Mm.
when Dare existed, the MD stood up and said it takes them about 1.5, 2 years to get their money back from a pitch.
Yeah. Yes. So I have a slightly different set of calculations, that depending on what your pitch to win conversion rate is. So if your pitch to win, and generally people underestimate, they think their pitch to win conversion rate is good enough. So we worked with the Italian Trade Association to explore the cost of the pitch amongst Italian agencies, and we identified the average cost of the pitch, the average value, the average value from a pitch. And what that enabled us to work out was that for using those averages, that if your pitch to win conversion rate is 33%, the amount that you put in takes you back to zero. So that's to say, if you say you do 10 pitches a year, and your pitch to win conversion rate is 33%, it costs you 50,000 per pitch to do that. Your break even percentage is 33%. So you really need to have a pitch conversion rate of north of 33%, 50%, 60%, 70%. There are agencies, as we see from the campaign record at the end of the year, that get pitch win rates of 100%. Okay, maybe they don't get it every year, but it is possible. We often go to agencies and they go, "Oh, our pitch to win rate is 25% or 33%," and feel that it's good enough. Unfortunately, it's not. You've got to be getting and pushing towards 40%, 50%. Otherwise, the return on your investment is not very good. Hence why that's how we get called into lots of agencies to help them improve that pitch to win conversion rate.
Brilliant. Thank you, Marcus. And Dan Willis, I'm just going to bring you in as the last question, then I'll wrap up.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that we've noticed quite a lot is that, when you've got ChatGPT just firing stuff out and it's the silly hyphens that are, popping through. What we've seen is a lot of that. And clients, so we work in digital, so we're web dev predominantly. We're seeing that clients are chucking in user testing, basically all the bells and whistles, with not the budgets to follow that. We've got a good qualification criteria. We push for workshops, etc. But it would be good to understand, Marcus, from your experience, how would you call them out on that? Or is it just worthwhile just ignoring that their knowledge is not in line with, what they should be talking about?
So what a great question. And isn't that true that, suddenly there are AI enabled briefs and criteria. So basically, I would use it to have a conversation with them. And, as before you go into any pitch, you always like to phone up and have a conversation with the client, get to know them a little bit, because it's a big investment on our side to do this. We want to do the best possible job, and that means us lining up lots of people and resources that comes out of our pocket. But we want to do a good job. I noticed your brief. There's lots of you've put lots of criteria in there. The kind of thing. I would jokingly bring it up. A lot of criteria in there. And we know that AI can do this and enhance briefs in this way. Are you really asking for all of that? Because I don't know if we can do that based upon the likely budget. So I think I would try and have a friendly conversation about it and, call them out in a polite, open way.
Yeah, I'd agree. And actually just try and find out what their priorities really are. I think
Absolutely.
Challenge everything.
Yeah.
So actually, I think there are a lot of lazy clients out there. There is a lot of clients who, with so much change happening, they do not really know. They're put into roles they don't really know enough about, and it's our roles to really be those experts to guide them in the right way.
Yeah.
And the more we can do that, the more it goes back to win without pitching methodologies, and actually you become that important partner in the room to them.
Yeah, it gives you you look very confident if you're having those sorts of conversations and talking about it. We see clients sending us these sorts of briefs now that have increased since AI availability.
Yeah.
But they're out of kilter is the reality with what's required.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Dan. That is actually all we've got time for. I'm sorry that we had some technical issues. I'm going to blame someone else. I can't say.
Not me.
I can't. No, not you, Marcus. And I can't say
Good.
this. But it was a really enlightening session. So thank you very much, and
Pleasure.
hope that the people on the call previously and on the call now got a lot out of it. We're going to be following up with some key takeaways and posting the video on YouTube page later. It'll probably be tomorrow. But if you want to get in touch with Marcus and myself, please do drop us an email. And finally, a couple of last bits of housekeeping. We have Stephen stroke Teresa's put them in the chat. We've got the 6 p.m. club tomorrow in Bath. That's been hosted by Phil Bacon and Marketing Managed. These networking events are really good, great opportunities to meet new people and share sort of ideas and challenges, and also actually client opportunities. Next week on the 30th, we've got Marketing Spice Live. It's about green growth and how marketing and employee social governance is really going to be shaping the future of business. And then the next BD Club is on the 4th of June, and that's going to be about building your marketing tech stack and looking at from CRM to marketing automation. Thank you all. Have a great day and look forward to speaking and seeing you all soon.